Hello, my fellow witches and warlocks. I am back again making another video. Super excited about continuing to do this. Being on camera is typically not a favorite hobby of mine, but I'll get over it. Anyways, I wanted to make this video about entities, lesions, and schizophrenia. That is a subject that I find that people are just really touchy about and people don't really understand. And I just don't feel like people don't talk about this as much as they should. So I'm just going to dive in because I find myself to be a little bit of an entity connoisseur since I was raised by one and I married one for 9 years. So let's dig in, guys. Um, so mental illness, they all have underlying reasons. I don't give a fuck what modern medicine says. They don't know shit. All they know is what the person is communicating in their particular symptoms. Are they hearing voices? Do they want to kill people? Do they want to do this? Do they want to do that? This is the thing about that. We all have that. We all want to fuck people up. We all sometimes do not want to be here. Does that mean we want to kill ourselves? Not necessarily, but we may not just want to deal with fucking life. Now, how people tend to deal with how people deal with that varies from person to person based on the strength of their situation and how that person has dealt with their problems throughout the course of their life. So, but basically, the underlying reason behind any level of a mental illness is going to be the oversensitivity to astral spirits. What's an astral spirit? That's a spirit that resides in the 4D and beyond 4D, 5D, 6D, all that great stuff. These are entities that reside in that area, and sometimes they are caught up in a lot of times they are like deceased loved ones, self-created spirit, interference from spirits that really don't even have anything to do with us. And sometimes we're just sensitive to people who might live next door. Or maybe we might have a graveyard next to the place that we lived, and we are able to pick up some of the vibrations of what's going on there. Also, ETs. Not everybody wants to believe in that, but that's up to you. But it is definitely a part of why people are imbalanced and are dealing with that. Why would any of us? The first one, some of these spirits are just bored. In all honesty, I'm just gonna be honest with you. Like some of these spirits are bored because they have been stuck between dimensions for like ever. When they died for whatever reason, they might have died in a traumatic accident or died instantly. Sometimes the soul may have left the body, but the soul did not completely make it over into the next dimension and go throughout the soul journey in the afterlife like it was supposed to. Um, but I noticed that happens a lot of times with instant death, um, as opposed to somebody who died slowly or who died from natural causes. Um, or maybe who just had like a really traumatic death, like somebody who was shot, somebody who was drowning, like something that was really traumatic. Sometimes, that's one thing that I've noticed in dealing with these spirits. Um, a lot of times, these spirits they just want you to relay messages to people to their own loved ones. Like, as a medium, I get that all the time. I'll be reminded all this, spirit, like, hey, can you go do this for me? Can you go tell them to go do this? No, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. Sometimes they have that's what they want you to do. Um, is it always perceived that way? No, not always. Sometimes these spirits will tell you whatever the fuck they have to say to you to move in a certain direction. Um, Sometimes the spirits come up to you very. This is where I think people make fun of people who are especially in the media, people who are in the streets talking about the aliens, they're doing this and they're doing that, and they're gonna suck, they're gonna suck your brains out, and they're gonna do this and do that. Like that is, people make fun of that, but sometimes these spirits can give warnings, and sometimes these spirits talk at the same time, and sometimes these messages are getting confused. Um, Also, self-created spirits that have gotten um, overactive. Now, when I say self-created spirits, this is something that you created as your, as a child, or even as an adult, because you were just really down on your luck or just feeling real fucked up, and that's something that you developed as a coping mechanism. These are thoughts. Spirits come in the form of thoughts. Some thoughts are stronger than others, and some of them just seem to be like a passing thought. Um, but that's all it is. When you're talking about dealing with sensitivity to energy, sometimes it can come in the form of first person, third person, or second person. Um, but these are things that we create. Um, they're used as coping mechanisms throughout childhood that grow big enough to become its own entity. Um, it could be an imaginary friend that stopped caring about boundaries, or it could have its own agenda as well too. I think probably the most common form of these spirits is going to be self-created. Like, say for instance, if we came from a dysfunctional household, or may have been abused, or may have had just really shitty luck with dealing with relationships, and every guy that you dated cheated on you, and you want to take it to yourself. You are taking the liberty to say, you know what, maybe this is a sign. Maybe I should be by myself. Maybe I should be by myself. So it's, and you telling yourself because you want to make yourself feel better. You want to make yourself stop trying, um, stop getting emotionally involved with these guys. And in turn, over the years, you end up starting to attract the worst of these men. And they're feeding off of that. They're feeding off of your desire to want something, but then you kind of teeter back and forth, teeter back and forth. Um, the imaginary friend is a big thing too, because I know a lot of parents out there that do not believe in that shit. They believe that their kid is making up something and something is wrong with their child when they say that. I'm not gonna tell you how to raise your kid, but imaginary friends, they are definitely out there, and sometimes they stick around, especially kids, especially those children who really don't spend that much time, like they're more introverted. Like my son is a Virgo. Like he was super talkative when he was like much younger, but now he's like into books and creating his own stories and this and that. And not to say anything is wrong with my kid. I love my kid. He's awesome. But for other people's kids who tend to spend a lot of time by themselves, or spend a lot of time just introverted, stuck in a room, they are probably feeding, that imaginary friend might be feeding off of that particular child, or that child just might be really lonely and may develop a stronger bond with that particular spirit, and it latches onto them, and that child keeps that spirit as a coping mechanism, as a teddy bear, as a blankie, so to speak. Um, because that spirit knows what to say whenever that child is in a position of feeling sad or lonely or whatever. So those things, also accrue upon us, and all a lot of the times whenever you're trying to get older, sometimes those spirits don't like it when you tell them to get the fuck. Like, sometimes they get mad, sometimes they get angry, sometimes they threaten you, sometimes they uh do really mean shit, or do things to scare you, come up in your dreams, or do this and do that, and they just, these are spirits. They're kind of fucked up. Like, they were feeding off of that particular child. Um, and now that the child is grown and has a wife and kids, or wants to go do this and go do that, like, sometimes they tend to lash on like that. Um, why doesn't modern medicine acknowledge any of this? Um, the first reason is because they're stupid. The second one is they would have to acknowledge life after death. They're not going to fucking do that. They're going to leave that up to religion. Um, the third one is there's no real logical approach to study it without going into religion. There's no way to prove it. There's no way to get funding to get that to get somebody to invest into something related to the afterlife. They're really just kind of leaving it up to religion. Nobody is gonna pay money for something that they cannot especially see. So that's one of the big reasons why. Another one is it's gonna cost them a whole lot of money in healthcare. Um, you know how much money they're making off of these psychiatrists who, who issue prescriptions for psychosomatic drugs and for antidepressants and for, all these other things out there. That's going to cost them a whole lot of money. And that's not something that they really want to do. So, um, why don't psychiatric meds actually help somebody that has many reasons? And that could range from they alter your dopamine and serotonin levels. That basically regulates your sensitivity to your intuition and your emotions. So it numbs you, basically. It numbs you. It doesn't make those things no longer exist, but it's like putting Orajel on a tooth that you just got pulled or a tooth that broke. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist anymore, but it just means that your level of sensitivity has been numb to it. That's very dangerous because it takes away a person's connection to higher dimensions. That's real fucked up. It means that you're living here in the physical and all you can do is react. It's harder for you to think. It's harder for you to plan, like that. You don't really know when something is wrong. When you have that feeling that something happens to your child, and when you have that feeling that you need to get up and do something, like you're here in the physical and you're operating based off of reaction alone. And I was on this shit for a really long time. And I remember that I was almost at risk of losing my job some years ago. Not the current one that I'm at now, but like some years ago, I was almost at risk of losing my job because it put me in a position to where my body was reacting before my conscious mind knew it. Like, say for instance, if somebody to walk up to me and hand me this phone, you know, and my body will respond and automatically grab it. But before I actually realized, like, wait, where did this phone just come from? It was like a 3 to 5 second lag on that, and I didn't like that because at the time I was a bank teller, and that was really fucking up my drawer, and it was caused me to be out of balance. Um, that's not good. It's not good at all. Um, Another reason why they don't work is that it causes the person to like not acknowledge the imbalance anymore. So, say for instance, if you have like this numbing stimu- uh, stimulant or anti-stimulant or something that's gonna really dumb you down, you're not going to take accountability for where you are spiritually. You're not going to give yourself a pep talk. There is no connection to the divine. There's one, but the physical you doesn't realize it because probably because you were so imbalanced and you're just happy to not want to fucking kill yourself anymore. Because that's how people typically get stuck in that. Like, I'm glad I don't want to kill myself or kill other people, so I must be doing good. Um, but the imbalance still exists, but the problem with it is that it has more control over you. Those spirits that were already attached to you that were or partially possessing you, they have more control over you because you're not aware. You're not able to realize, hey, that thought just came through my mind, but that doesn't feel like something that I feel like I should be thinking. So let me get rid of that thought. Like, you're losing your intuition to know whether or not that thought is yours or for something else. It's taking away your ability to think for yourself. Um, Oftentimes, symptoms of what they call psychosis have gotten worse after you try to get off that medicine as well too. And the reason why is simply because of what I've just stated, that those entities that are a part of you, are having a fucking field day, in your energetic field, just dancing around because you're not going to do shit. You're not going to tell them, hey, you calm down back there. They're not going to tell, that person's not going to try to fight it off or stand up to it. They're just doing whatever the fuck they want to do. So when that person gets off that medication, they feel super cuckoo because it's gotten worse. And that shit's not okay. Um, let's see. Also, how do we, another question that I'm also often asked is, how do legions possess people? Um, this is an interesting topic that I think a lot of people tend to kind of glance over. But it's during deep depression. Depression is a motherfucker. When somebody's high all the time, and it don't have to be about marijuana, but it can be marijuana. If you're one of those people who smoke 5 blunts a day, and you go to work and you smoke 5 blunts a day, and you really don't do shit with your life when you get home, you're not really dealing with you and whether or not you like your job and your actual situation. You're not really fully in your body because you're high. You're not completely out of your body, but you're high. You're not grounded enough to deal with reality. They sneak in like that too. And there are sometimes, or depending on what you're taking, whether it's shrooms or acid or what ayahuasca or whatever the fuck you're taking, and you're not taking it for a spiritual purpose, you might actually like make friends or bump elbows with somebody or with a spirit up there that's like, hey, yeah, you're cool. You might actually welcome it into your energetic field at that point. Also, when a person stops having the will to live, this is a big one. Somebody don't want to be here no more, but doesn't have the heart to take themselves out. I've been in that position too. Um, Years ago, going through my separation and the divorce and everything like that, and when you completely lose the will to live. I'm not gonna say completely, but you're on the fence. You don't really want to be here, but at the same time, you realize, damn, if I do that, I'm gonna fuck some shit up. So you know what? I'm just gonna stick around. When you're at that point, like you should just start letting shit happen to you. Energetically, you just stop caring. You stop caring what people say. You stop caring um, how you perform in your job. You stop caring what's going on with your kids or whatever. Like when you're at that point when you're just who cares, just la la la, just completely just out of it, don't really want to fucking be here. That's just like an an opportune time for a legions to sneak up on you and be like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna help you. Let's be friends. You make friends with that fucking legion, and you realize that you don't have partial control over yourself. Sometimes it might be actual loved ones who are trying to keep you here because you have a mission here. But again, if it's taking partial possession of your body, um, you probably don't know that that's happening. You probably don't know exactly what's going on. Um, let's see. Does that person consciously know? Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention about that is that the astral spirits take advantage of that opportunity. Some keep that person alive and to feed off that person's energy too. You have some maleficent spirits that are out there that really don't give two fucks about you. That are just they're stuck in this situation and they don't have shit else to do. Or they're just mad because you try to get rid of them. So you know what? They're gonna use you. They're gonna use the energy that you're dealing with in the physical, and they're gonna feed off of that. They'll also tend to want to possess you too whenever that person is depleted. Like say for instance, that person is just a crackhead or just somebody who just deals with drugs a lot, somebody who's barely still living. They'll tend to do that just so they can have a consistent feeding source. So when that person, musters up the strength to get up and go to work, they'll feed off of those, feed off of other people, feed off the emotions of other people. Of if they're married, they'll piss off their wife, just to get her upset, and they'll just act as a vampire and suck the energy clean out of her. That shit happens like that all the time. Um, let's see. The next part I wanted to talk about was, does that person still own that body? And the answer is yes. They still own that body as long as that person is still alive. That soul is, they're not completely out. They're not completely out of their body. They might be mostly out of their body, but they are still very much the owner. They still have that soul cord to that particular body. Um, that person, I'm sorry, the spirits I'm sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. Okay, so the spirits can act on their behalf when their energy is too high, or to protect themselves from exposure. So when we talk about, when the energy is too high, say for instance, you know, this person's really not looking forward to having a conversation with their, I don't know, best friend. Best friend fucked them over. So the person has a tendency to want to flee. So that particular spirit or legions um, might decide to take over at that particular time and feed off of that, feed off of the anger or the irritation from that other person. A classic example would be, like these celebrities who get up there and get on stage, and they get on stage and they perform. They might be themselves, for most of the day, throughout the day, but when they get on stage, you'll see like these YouTube videos of like where he, his complete demeanor changes, the looks on his face and his eyes, and how he acts completely changes. It's not really him. It's that entity that is feeding off of the energy of the audience. Like when it gets too high in that person, just or they might have some type of stage fright. Some of these celebrities have that, believe it or not. Some of these people have stage fright, so they end up having to turn on or allowing something else to take over them in order for them to do what they're being paid to do. Um, so when they basically feed off the audience, and when they do that, the spirits get bigger and bigger. The more you feed, the more you feed them, is the bigger they get. Like that Little Shop of Horrors, when that little Venus flytrap is like, "Feed me, Seymour." Gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's basically what they do, and they will eventually have to like leave the host when the host is not able to, have any level of control of their body anymore. And eventually, the host, which is the soul of that person, might be like, what, fuck this, and they might end up, having some level of drug overdose or just doing something that costs their life. So, how do you get rid of legions or these spirits? It sounds simple, but it's two things. Determine why the legion or spirit is there, and then starve it out. How to identify if somebody has one. And so, I'm laughing because I don't want y'all to laugh at me. Y'all don't do it. But people are going to be like really dark, like bug eyes almost type. And like the blinking of their eyelids seem like rather forced, like they have to remember to blink. It's not natural, like a natural blink. It's more like they're just really struggling to have normal operations of their body. The physical movement seems forced as well too, like where you realize people are just real stiff with their movement, that kind of thing too. Um, Oftentimes they stutter, or like their voice tends to change. Sometimes sometimes they go into like a childlike voice, or sometimes their voice gets really really deep, depending on like what they're dealing with. Um, what the one thing that I typically see with these, they have like a greasy residue on their auric field and or skin, no matter how much they wash. Like they just look super dirty. Like, yeah. Okay. And these are like creepy people. These are not people that you would just be like, oh hi, and just feel comfortable. These people are not exactly all that personable. Some of them are. Some of them, the ones who wear suit and ties, they're much better at being personable. Um, but those people who don't, that just, who are strung out on drugs, or people who, people who are going through some shit still, they don't tend to look like humans, if that makes sense. They seem to be like real, something just real off about them. Like something took over them or something ain't right. It makes that somebody that you will look at and you'll be like, I do not want to sit next to that person. That's oftentimes what that is. And this isn't, they don't all do drugs. Some of them do, but some of them don't. But oftentimes it is mainly seen in people who do drugs And not just marijuana. I'm not knocking marijuana if that's something that you do. I don't do that. But if that's something that you want to do, that I'm not saying that marijuana causes that. But excess of it, where you're just not in your body long enough to defend yourself or protect yourself, then yeah, maybe. Also, they tend to have glossy eyes, and they tend to like look like they want to eat you, like they give you that long stare that just makes you feel like, what the fuck is wrong with you? They tend to do that. Also, multiple personalities. They can be somebody you can talk to, and you touch on a sore subject with them, and they instantly flip and turn on Becky or Rachel or whoever it is. These people who just typically flip back and forth like that, and that can go from good to ugly or ugly to good. If somebody walks in the room, I know my mom was like that. Somebody walked in the room that she didn't want anybody to see her like that, then she would instantly turn into a nice person. So it works both ways. Also, that person tends might appear to have a horrible short-term memory. Something just happened outside and they don't remember what happened. Like when they just went off on that person, they were not fully there. Sometimes their skin tone changes during that time frame as well too. And then you try to bring it up to them the next day, and they're like, "What are you talking about? That didn't happen. You didn't, like they don't fully remember." Because again, when that entity takes over, they're not really inside of their body at that point in time. Sometimes they're too perfect. They or look just perfectly manicured, hair's done, and but they look perfect, but they don't seem to have any level of warmth of a heart. Like this is somebody that you would not be able, that you feel like is kind of fake, like you know. So, and some of them are like barely functional as well too. People who just have a hard time, talking, walking, just have a hard time just moving. And this is not people who have had accidents. These are not people you know, um, who are handicapped in some way. These are people who at one point were doing okay. Um, and you notice that there's been maybe like a recent change or something like that in that behavior. And I'm not saying just one of these attributes. These will be multiple of these attributes. At least let's say out of 9 that I named, at least 5 of these things you're going to be able to notice in somebody who has uh, a legion or just a spirit that is an entity that is possessing them. And just so you guys can kind of get an understanding of what it is that I'm talking about, and know that I'm not just making shit up. I'm just going to give y'all a couple of Hollywood entities, because that's what I typically call these people, entities. Because they are. They're not really them. They're really a personification of a bunch of astral hood rats that bullied people out of having access to their own bodies. Some of these people want their body back. Some of these people were tricked. Some of these people were real fucking high and agreed to be like, hey, yeah, you know what, you can, we can share, you know. But some celebrity examples, that'd be Donald Trump, John Travolta, Doreen Virtue, Cher, Lil Wayne, Joan Rivers, Paula Deen, Heidi Montag, Gary Busey, I think that's how you say his last name, Busey, Stephen King, Dennis Rodman, Marilyn Monroe, Carrot Top, oh goodness, um, Jack Nicholson, Ozzy Osbourne, Macaulay Culkin, Janice Dickinson, and that's everybody that I could think of right now. So, again, questions, comments, please leave a response below. Dumb comments may not always be responded to. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please subscribe. I look forward to talking to y'all very soon. Have a good day. Thanks.